Good morning, friends. Happy Vlogmas Day 8. Today is December 15th. It is currently 6:13 in the morning, and we are going to open day 8 of my Nest Fiber Advent. First, I will show you how day 7, that's how numbers work. I'll show you how day 7 finished up. This was the polewort spin. You guys, we're going to have to play a little bit of bobbin chicken today because I don't know if I'm getting this all on this bobbin. We will see. I mean, worst comes to worst, I'll get another bobbin, but I don't know if I'm getting a whole nother ounce on this bobbin. I'm going to try because we live life on the edge here. We make reckless choices and we do it up. So here's what it looks like. So you can see all those like dusty pinks and periwinkle and that grello color. It spun up. I mean, polewort always spins up beautifully, so nothing really to say about that. It's a great fiber for spinning. I really, really enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and pop my bobbin back on my Lundrum. I had to call Spinolution again because my bullfrog and I are really, really going through it these days. But Mike at Spinolution gave me a few more tips that he thinks might fix it. And if it doesn't fix it, then I'm just going to have to buy a new flyer. But he was giving me some tips on what I could do to save me the expense of having to buy a new flyer. So I had to order some screws. We're going through it. Hopefully my wheel will be up and running by the time I'm off for that week between Christmas and New Year's so I can have 2 wheels because I like to flip back and forth between projects. Thankfully my e-spinner is in tip-top shape so I can spin on my e-spinner because I've just been leaving my Lundrum out here with my Advent spins on it. So until I finish that last set of singles on December 23rd, my Lundrum's going to be occupied. On the bright side, then I'll be free and I'll have my wheel back. But I would like to have my bullfrog back too. So hopefully by the time I film my actual podcast episode, we will have an update on whether my bullfrog is in tip-top shape and it's not mad at me anymore because she is very, very mad. Enough is enough. Let us open the next day. And today also has a fun little vintage ornament on it. Look at how pretty that is. I love that Jen put little presents. I will tell you guys, today's December 15th and our Christmas tree is still not up because Joshua and I, our schedules have just been very transient and we have not been home together at the same time. And then when we are, we're both exhausted. So I'm really hoping to get my tree up this weekend because it is not like me to have the month be halfway over and still not have our Christmas tree up. Normally our tree is up by the 1st of the month. And I've been really missing it. I've been missing coming home and like, I also have not listened to a single Christmas carol this month. And I think it's because my Christmas tree isn't up and I'm just like, I'm in denial that it's Christmas. So we'll see. But I'm going to put my Nest ornaments on the tree because I think there's 4 in there. So I'm going to put it on the tree when I get it up. Now, the present dance. Yes. Let's see what's in here. Okay. Fun colors. I can't believe I did that out loud. I've never done that out loud. Fun colors. Oh, okay, you guys. It is merino, which I actually do enjoy spinning. It's not my favorite fine wool to spin, but it's not my nemesis. So it's a good day. I like this grunge. Okay, so this has green and yellow. No, not yellow. That's not the right color. This has green and red and pink, which is a very interesting color story to put together. It has more of that like grungy grello color, and then it has some of the reds. I think the cool thing Jen did is that even though these are all like 12 distinct colorways, she must have used the same dyes on multiple colors so that actually, and I like this little bit of space where the dye broke and there's some white. I like when there's that, like that break from color in my, wow, this feels really nice. Okay. I am not going to put my, you guys, I have to tell you a quick story. So yes, not yesterday, 2 days ago, normally what I do is I strip my fiber down and then I leave the rest of it in the basket with the unopened bundles for me to spin later. And 2 days ago, I came home from work to finish my polewort spin and the cats had taken the last bundle of fiber left in that basket and I was walking around looking for it for a half hour and they took it and hid it under the radiator. So I'm not leaving my fiber on the floor anymore. Mind you, we were on day 7. It was day 7 and they did that. These cats are always up to no good. Hellions. By day 7, that's when they decided they wanted to take my stuff. So I will tell you what we are talking about today. And hello, hi, my name is Tashi. Welcome to Vlogmas. If this is your first time here, thanks for clicking on this video. If you have been here for the rest of the month, welcome back. But I was going to say, if you've watched any of the other Vlogmas videos, you know what we're talking about today. And if you couldn't tell, I'm wearing my D20 sweatshirt because we are talking about Dungeons and Dragons, the greatest role-playing game there ever was. Okay. So if today's video is not for you, no hard feelings. You can click off and come back when we're talking about wool again, which we will be doing on Saturday when we do wool vocab. But I really like D&D, and a few of the people, I've gotten some comments saying you should totally do a D&D episode. And honestly, this is Vlogmas, so we're just going to hang out and chit chat. So we're going to talk about D&D. First, I figure here's my plan. First, I'll tell you how I got into D&D. And then I will talk to you about the characters I play. I'm in 3 ongoing 3.5, because one of my campaigns isn't. I'm in 3.5 ongoing campaigns. So I'll talk to you about my characters. I'll share you like a screenshot of my character sheet if you really want to know how I build and the choices I make. Spoiler alert, I don't always make sensible choices, but that makes for fun roleplay. And that's what we'll do today. So, I got into D&D like a lot of people got into D&D right now, and that's through Critical Role. If you don't know, Critical Role is a D&D podcast, live play. I think they call them actual play. That is where a bunch of voice actors from like video games and anime play D&D, and they stream it. And that's how I got into D&D. But the funny story is my husband has been watching Critical Role for years. And for years, he's been trying to get me to watch Critical Role. And I was like, get out of here with that nerd stuff. I'm not interested. Like, D&D is where I drew the line for how nerdy. Josh and I are huge nerds, for perspective. I mean, if you can't tell from the way I talk about wool, Joshua and I are huge nerds. And I was just like, get out of here with your nerd stuff. I'm not interested. And I put it off for years. He kept trying to explain it to me, and I was like, you just watch people make funny voices and talk about things that they're not actually doing, and it's all in their imagination. And he was like, yes, and it's great. And I was like, no, that sounds impossible. There's no way that's great. And then he tried to make me watch the Christmas episode, and you guys, if you watch Critical Role, you know which one I'm talking about. It's when Travis Willingham plays the evil gnome Chetney. You know exactly which episode I'm trying to talking about. And I couldn't get past the ad copy. And if you've watched Critical Role, Sam Riegel does ads every episode. And they're kind of the fun part of the show. But, like, if you're new to the whole universe of CR, that kind of stuff just feels really gimmicky. And so I didn't even get past the ads and I turned it off. And then Campaign 3 was starting. And I was like, all right, let me try this from the beginning. Because the other time he tried to make me watch an episode, he tried to get me to watch it in the middle of Campaign 2. So I had no idea who these people were. I had no attachment to these characters, and I was like, this is dumb. Like, turn this off. So Campaign 3 started, and I was like, let me give this one more try. And I watched the first episode of Campaign 3, and I finally understood why people liked the whole idea of roleplay. First of all, I understood why people like Dungeons and Dragons. And then I had a big epiphany about why people liked Critical Role. And I was like, okay. And then I was invested. And every time I talk about D&D, that's an extra D. Every time I talk about D&D, I do the okay thing, which is something that Ashley Johnson does on the show, and I only do it when I'm talking about Dungeons and Dragons. It does not come out of my vocabulary any other time except when I'm talking about D&D. I don't know, that part of my brain just like associates D&D with Ashley Johnson going okay. And so now I do it all the time. So sorry. But I really got into it. And then I went searching for other D&D content. And Joshua was like, well, there's a whole nother campaign. So while I was waiting for Campaign 3 episodes to come on, I would watch Campaign 2. And I really enjoyed watching it at night. Because it's not super noisy. And I can turn it off. I can listen to it. I don't have to have the TV on. And I got really engrossed in the story of Campaign 2. And I gotta say, I think I prefer the characters in Campaign 2 to Campaign 3. But I'm not caught up on Campaign 3. No spoilers, you guys. No spoilers, because we are very behind on Campaign 3. I think I'm like 6 or 7 episodes behind. So we cannot talk about Campaign 3. And I haven't finished Campaign 2. So just don't talk to me about Critical Role at all in the comments. You can tell me who your favorite characters are. That's fair game. But we cannot talk plot points because I have not finished Campaign 2. And I'm very behind on Campaign 3. And if you spoil something for me, I will be heartbroken forever and ever. So please no spoilers. So I started watching CR, and then I discovered Dimension 20, and I discovered that there are other DMs doing actual play styles. Brennan Lee Mulligan is my favorite DM of all time. I mean, I have a soft spot for Matt Mercer because Critical Role is how I discovered Dungeons & Dragons, but I will watch Brennan Lee Mulligan. Brennan has the range. Brennan goes from making me laugh to like terrifying me to making me cry real tears in the space of 5 minutes. Like, I do not like how easy it is to emotionally manipulate me, but Brennan's really good at his job. Also, if you know anything about me, Lou Wilson is like God's gift to humanity. Like, this is officially a Lou Wilson stan account. I am obsessed with Lou Wilson, and so when he plays on D20, it's a good fit. If you watch the Exandria Calamity where Brennan DM'd for Critical Role and Lou Wilson it was like a perfect it was an emotionally devastating 4 weeks. I cried every episode, but it was honestly probably the most perfect D&D collaboration that has ever existed in the history of D&D collaborations. Mind you, I'm very new to the universe, so I should not be making blanket statements like that, but there we are. So I was watching Critical Role for like 2 months, and then I was like, hold on, I want to play this game. This game seems rad. So I started watching a bunch of YouTube videos on character creation and on the different classes, because the little bit I knew about D&D was from watching other people play D&D. I bought a copy of the Player's Handbook, and I like really immersed myself in the universe and started doing like crazy research, like staying up all night building theoretical characters, testing spells on like nothing, like research out the you guys. And then I started looking for games. I knew I wanted to play in person, but at the time, you know, it was still peak pandemic, and most people weren't really looking to invite strangers into their personal bubbles, which I get. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll go find some virtual games. And we're lucky in New York City in that we have a bunch of tabletops. We have game stores. We have the Brooklyn Strategist. We have the 20-sided store. So we have a few stores in the city that are designed for gaming, and those stores have servers on Discord. And so I joined 2 servers, and I ended up in 2 very affirming, very amazing campaigns. I found 2 great DMs. I gotta say, I got really lucky in that I didn't get bad DMs. For a new person who is learning, sometimes getting a bad DM or a bad game is like the thing that just makes you decide that D&D is not for you. And I got very lucky straight out the gate, because I'm still playing in the games that were the first games I discovered. I did not have to look for any more games. I am still playing in those games. And I got very lucky. So one of my games is in person, and we play every other Saturday. And then my other 2 games are online, and they're with the same group of people. One person is DMing one game, and another person is DMing the other game, and then we play in person about every other month. Like, whenever everyone's free on a weekend, we'll find like a bar or we'll go to a gaming store in the city and we'll play in person. But that game meets every week, and we do that one through Zoom. And when we meet in person, it's really nice because we've been playing together for about a year. So it's really cool to just like hang out. The problem with in-person games when you don't play in person all the time is sometimes you get distracted from actual D&D and you spend like half the day catching up. And what should be a 4-hour session ends up taking like 6 hours because you're like having fun and you're hanging out. And then you're like, oh yeah, we're actually supposed to be like propelling this story forward. So Dungeons & Dragons is at its core a role-playing storytelling game. You have a DM, that's a dungeon master or a game master or whatever you call them, and they are the world, pretty much. and you are playing a person in the world. So the DM plays all the non-player characters. That's what an NPC is. And they play the world. They describe the setting to you. And then they lay out choices, and you make choices and you role play them, and you navigate your hero's journey through the world. You can play a good person. You can play a bad person. You can play a being of unrestrained chaos, which is typically what I play. Almost all my characters are either chaotic good or chaotic neutral, which is really fun. To just not have your DM know what you're going to do at all. I find that really fun. I think my DMs find it a little bit stressful. Yeah, actually, no, I play one very good character. I don't know what Feinala's alignment is, but my other two characters are very much chaotic good and chaotic neutral, which is kind of fun. And so you play a PC, and you're typically in a party. So all of my games are parties of 4, which I feel like is fun because everyone has time to like actually role play some cool stuff, and you don't have to worry about like stepping over each other. So I think parties of 4 is a pretty solid number. I'm happy with my 4-person parties, and you go on adventures together. So that was pretty much how I discovered D&D and what I do in D&D. I will tell you about my characters. So the first character that I played, her name is Marigold. I don't think I ever gave her a last name, which I should fix because she deserves one. And I like to say Marigold is human plus. She's a variant human, which is the race in D&D that I built her as. And there's something that's just not quite human about her, and no one has figured it out yet. And so I don't want to spoil it in case anyone in my campaign watches it. But she's just human plus. Marigold is a Gloomstalker Ranger rogue multiclass. I have not picked her rogue subclass yet. We are at level 7. So she has 2 levels of rogue and then 5 levels of Gloomstalker Ranger. And my DM has had to nerf Marigold twice because Marigold is super deadly, especially in the first round of combat. Gloomstalkers are built to like be obnoxious in the first round of combat. So for the record, if you're completely new to D&D, you get a class and then you get a subclass. Most of the time at level 3, sometimes straight out the gate you pick your subclass. So her class is Ranger, and then her subclass is Gloomstalker. And Gloomstalkers are built to be terrifying in the night. And my DM knows I'm about to do something ridiculous when I ask what the lighting conditions are outside. I think she's come to dread that question when I ask what the lighting conditions are outside. Because the second she tells me it's dark out, I'm just about to cause some mayhem. Just general mayhem. So Marigold, for a little bit of Marigold's backstory, Marigold was abandoned by her parents. I mean, is it D&D if you don't have a tragic backstory? I'm not sure. Marigold was abandoned by her parents at a wizarding institution. She had shown affinity for magic at a very young age and was a little bit harder to control than her parents liked, and so they abandoned her at this wizarding school, and then she never really fit in at the wizarding school and got herself in a bit of trouble and got expelled, and so has just been roaming the streets by herself ever since. She has lucked out and found a band of adventurers who don't mind her tendency towards sarcasm and towards being a bit meaner than she should be. And so she's been hanging out with this group ever since. Marigold has coral pink hair that she wears down in like loose waves. Actually, you know what? I made a mood board for her. I was going to commission a piece of art for her, and I have not found the artist that I want to do her art yet. But I did have a mood board, so I'll put the mood board here so you can see it. But she wears like a cloth around her mouth to keep her face covered, just so you don't see her, because she is, again, at one with the night. She has coral pink hair. She wears this like open skirt situation with a cloak over top, and she carries a crossbow that she has painstakingly engraved with a copse of wildflowers. And she is the first character I ever built, and I really like playing her. I find Marigold really fun. It's really cool when you have these like character ideas, because the thing about D&D is you have these ideas but you have no idea who these people are going to be until you start playing them in the world, and you have no idea how they're going to interact with other people until they actually have to start doing it. So I was like, Marigold's going to be like a super smooth talker because she's had to live on her own and she's a thief and blah blah. And then I realized that Tashi's not a super smooth talker, so it's very hard to play someone who can like talk their way out of like a gang fight, because that's just not what I'm good at. I am very charismatic. You'll notice the rest of my characters are very high charisma. I am very charismatic, but I'm not very smooth. And also you might notice that a lot of my characters just have low intelligence, because I think it's really fun to play a character who's not very smart and who makes questionable choices because they do not understand the world around them. So that's Marigold. My second character is my ray of sunshine, and her name is Feinala Stormbright. And my DM says all the time that Stormbright is not her actual name, but we're gonna agree to disagree on that one. Stormbright is actually not her name. That's not her family name. It's the name she picked for her. It's the name she picked for herself when she left home to go on her adventure. So Feinala is a half-elf aberrant mind sorcerer. And she's 19. She's a bit of a baby, so she has that like naivete that you have when you're leaving home for the first time and you have all this power and you have nothing to do with it. She has max charisma, and she knows that. Feinala is very cute, very cuddly, and will talk her way out of any situation, and will talk anybody into doing anything she wants, and she'll try her best. She's very high persuasion. A bit about Feinala's story is Feinala was born during the wildest storm in a century. Like, deadly storm. People were trapped on mountains, trees were falling over, and somehow this little bitty girl, who was an accident, she's the youngest of 3, and her parents were not planning on another baby, and she was born with stark white hair and bright violet eyes, very different features from anyone else in her family. And they discovered early on that she could read minds and speak into their heads. Faye, when she was like a toddler, would sometimes respond to things that people were not saying out loud, and things that she had no way of knowing, things that she should not have known. And they realized early on that she had this weird bit of magic that no one really understood why she had it, or really understood how she could control it. And so Faye did not really have friends growing up, because it's kind of weird when the girl that you're talking to can read your mind, and children don't like weird. And so she was kind of on her own until she found a mentor, and her mentor trained her in a way of honing her magics and in a way of making the voices around her go silent. And pretty much Faye's adventure kicked off when she left home to try to figure out why she had these powers. She's off to a big library. Well, she's eventually going to get to a big library. Feinala has not made it to the library yet. She's eventually going to make it to a big library that might have some answers for her. In the meantime, her and her party members are living the best life. My games are both homebrew games. I feel like I should say that. So they're not... when you play a game of D&D, sometimes there's manuals where your DM can just follow the instructions, or you can play in a world that your DM creates. So both of my games are homebrew games, which I find really cool, that there are people out there who can build whole worlds, and they're like fully fleshed out worlds with locations and maps in their mind. Like, I can't relate. Yes, so her and her party members are off to travel the world to obviously save the world, because what else do you do in D&D besides... You can do other things in D&D besides save the world, but like I'm attracted to the big adventure stories, like those big sweeping character arcs. So we're on a mission to save the world, in addition to hopefully figuring out how she got her powers. Faye also has like a little bit of anxiety around storms, which is really fun to play out. And there are cool things about character building. Like, you can give your characters flaws. Like, you don't have to make them like super perfect people. You can make them actual people. So Faye has a little bit of anxiety around storms, which has some fun play mechanics. She is my good character. I haven't figured out... I don't think she's lawful good, but I don't think she's chaotic good either. So she just might be neutral good. She's definitely a good aligned character. And Marigold is chaotic good. She started chaotic neutral, and the longer she's been with her party, it's kind of hard to not be a good aligned character when everyone else in your party is a good aligned character. Because then you're like, all right, well, this is what we're doing as a group, then I guess I should like it's not like people are forcing me to fall into line, but it just feels right to make better choices when everyone else in your group is making choices. So Marigold is definitely chaotic good now. She was not chaotic good in the beginning. In fact, at one point my party thought she was evil. She was never evil. She was just neutral. She had her own set of laws, and people just didn't understand that. And then my last character is... Oh, and Faye is level 5. She's a level 5 Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. I will eventually multi-class her when we get, I think, 2 more levels. I'm going to multi-class her. But for now, we are taking lots and lots of levels in Sorcerer. Sorcerers, I will say I've learned that I do not like playing prepared spellcasters. It's just too hard for me to have access to all those spells. So some spellcasters, you just have spells, and some spellcasters, you can switch your spells every day. I do not think I would have fun switching spells every day. So Sorcerer and Warlock are my favorite casters to play, because you don't have to do that. You just pick your spells. And yes, that means you're stuck with your spells, but also it means you don't have to worry about picking new spells every day. So my last character is at level 17, which D&D maxes out at level 20. So like level 17 is very, very high level. And we had decided that we were going to do a level 15 in my first game. One of the people that I play with is also DM, and he was like, do you guys want to play in a level 15 one-shot? And I was like, yeah, that'd be really cool to like play a really, really high level character. And that level 15 one-shot has turned into a campaign. Because we enjoy playing these characters so much. And he enjoys DMing for us so much that he's like fleshed out his one-shot into like a fully fleshed out world. And we've played like 8 or 9 sessions. And we're at level 17 right now. And now we're about to go into this big scary arc that I'm very worried about. But my character is fearless. So her name is Graylin Mialo. And she is a Oathbreaker Paladin Hexblade Warlock multiclass, which just means if you meet Graylin in a dark alley, you're not coming back out. Because I built Graylin for a one-shot, I built Graylin to annoy my DM as much as possible. I was like, how can I build this character so he can never hit her, and so she can do as much damage as humanly possible in each turn? And I have succeeded. Because I have been thwarting my DM for months, and he gets very frustrated that he cannot hit me and that I just walk in, wail on his monsters, and walk out. Graylin is a Dhampir. She's not a vampire. She's a Dhampir. And pretty much her story is... So the thing about Graylin is because I built her for a one-shot, I have not completely fleshed out her backstory. So we're all kind of making up our backstories as we go, which is kind of fun. But I did flesh out her backstory a little bit more. So Graylin is like 6'2", like she's super tall. She's rail thin, and her skin's a little bit gray, enough for you to realize that she's not quite human. And the fangs, you know, the fangs help. And she was in service to the Raven Queen. And something happened, and this is the thing about not having my backstory fully fleshed out yet. I will eventually flesh it out. But something happened that caused her to be cast out of the Raven Queen service. And that's why she's an Oathbreaker. And she was left for dead on the side of the road. And a vampire found her, saw some potential in her, raised her, and gave her her powers. Which is why she is a warlock. The vampire is her patron, and they have a very complex relationship where Graylin pushes all of his buttons and he threatens to eat her all the time. And that is my girl. Graylin has max charisma. I mean, I think you're seeing a trend here. I love playing charismatic characters. I think that's why I'm attracted to sorcerers and warlocks so much, is charisma is their spellcasting ability. And I love a charismatic character, but she's not very smart and she's not very strong. And some, you know, when you roll your stats, you got to pick your dump stat, right? And I have been choosing to dump strength, which I imagine will eventually come back to bite me, but I'm playing casters and they don't need to be very strong. And hopefully someone else in my party is strong and can make up for my limp noodleness. So there's that. And Graylin, she's a riot. So I decided to play her. So when I play Faye and her charisma, Faye is really cute and cuddly, and she's always like, darling, I am Feinala Stormbright, and she charms the pants off of everyone. And when I play Graylin, Graylin's charisma is more of the intimidating side of it. So it's just force of personality. So she's not charming, charismatic, but you can tell she's entered a room before you even see her because of the force of her personality. So she's kind of awkward. Kind of weird, doesn't really understand like social norms because it's just been her and a vampire in his like creepy castle for a very long time. She stopped growing up at 25 because 25 was when she was, you know, almost murdered and then turned into a Dhampir. So she has not really aged physically since then, but also her emotional intelligence is very low. So she has super strong force of personality and then doesn't really know how to use it. So she's like the muscle of their group. She just stands around and looks menacing and is very good at threatening people. And she's a lot of fun to play. Over the time, she has gotten softened considerably by her partner. Our game, for the record, our game is called Goth Girls and Gifted Gourmands because two of the people in the game, my character and one of our other player characters, are like, we built these characters in a vacuum and we ended up building very similar characters. They're both super tall, super thin, don't eat, don't sleep, and are in service to less than kind death gods. So kind of fun how that happened. And so we call each other the Goth Girls. And these characters have considerably softened since we started playing them. And that's the cool thing about D&D is you build these characters in a vacuum, but you have no idea how they're going to relate to the other player characters, and it's really nice to see relationships build as you play them, because if you're hanging out, I mean, I'm assuming that the people you play with are your friends, right? Because you're hanging out with these people for hours. Like, sessions are about 4 hours, and if you're doing a session every week or every 2 weeks, you're hanging out with these people for 4 to 5 hours every week. I would hope that they're your friends or that you become friendly with them. And it's kind of hard to not have your characters become friendly with their characters as you become friendly with them. Now, I love a good party conflict. I love a bit of conflict in a party every now and then. But, like, it's not fun for me if that's, like, the basis of your roleplay, if your roleplay is antagonistic all the time. So I really like playing. I've gotten very lucky. I have really good party. I'm saying this out loud to the internet. I am learning and practicing DMing. And I've been practicing literally on myself and like practicing with Joshua to run some one-shots because I really want to learn how to DM, but I also don't know if I'd be any good at it. So I'm learning how to DM to like run some one-shots because a few of my knitter friends are like, I miss D&D, I wish I had a campaign. And I was like, okay, I can run a one-shot provided that you understand that I am a complete novice and I have no idea what I'm doing. So that'll be something I probably do next year. I was actually hoping to do it over the holidays because I'll have like days off to like really engross myself in it. But I have been practicing fun voices and like practicing how to build tension when describing a scene and all the things that my DMs do that I love. I've been taking notes. So we'll see if that's something I do next year. But that's the D&D episode. That's literally me babbling about how much I love playing D&D and talking to you about my characters for a half hour. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're into D&D, I highly recommend checking out Dimension 20 or checking out Critical Role. There are a bunch of actual plays out there, but those are just the really popular ones. And if you mention that to someone who's also into D&D, it's a really good frame of reference for people because most people will know what you're talking about. So I highly recommend you check those out if you just want to figure out what us nerds are talking about. And then try not to be a dice goblin because I started out with one set of 7, I have one set of 7 polyhedral dice and I now have 12 sets. So try not to be a dice goblin because no one needs that many sets of dice. Or if you do, live your best life and get all the shiny math rocks. So that's it, you guys. Happy December. Happy Vlogmas. And I will see you for vocabulary in 2 days.